We'll see last topic of the exception handling called as the global exception handler, right? So as in mention in this you can say the topic, or you can say in the sentence, global exception handling. So what do you mean by global? Global means exception occurred and which is not handled, right? If any exception is occurred and which is not handled by these techniques like try catch block or any other techniques, so globally this exception will handle by the global exception handler. Means any exception occurred anywhere in the whole project, anywhere that exception handle or exception occurs and which is not handled by the program, that error will handle by the global exception handler. So if any exception occurs, right, occurs in a program and which is not handled by the program. Example, if I have like 200, or if I have the 20 XAML files or 20 workflows, and each and every XAML file I need to put in the try catch block. Usually we are doing this thing in a real-time projects, right? But unfortunately I'll miss some program, or if I'll miss some you can say workflow, or if I'll miss some XAML file, to include that XAML file inside the try catch block, right? And inside that specific XAML, if I'll got any exception, right, then then obviously then in this case exception will stop that bot, right? But if I'll use global exception handler, that unhandled exception also handled by the global exception handler, right? So in short, I'll just mention, if any unhandled exception occurs, that exception is handled by global exception handler. Global exception handler, right? So that's what this name itself mention, global exception handler. So exception handling is done but in a global way. Okay, so let's see how this works, this global handler, or you can say global exception handler techniques will works. It's you can say it's a simple one. Okay, now for example, I have one activity, right? Or for example, I'll just mention, I need to create exception, right? Intentionally I need to create exception, right? So here what I'll do, in the sequence one, simple, inside this I'll take one activity, right? For example, I'll use click activity. Okay, okay, fine. And here I'll use one simple, I'll use for example here I'll use indicate on screen, and simply I'll put something like that. Okay, so I'm just clicking that, right? So and here I'll just cancel that. So if that selector will not execute, that means obviously we will get the exception. Okay, now if I'll run this, obviously I will get exception. Just consider I have a lot of files with me, and out of this file, this sequence1.xml files is a file where I'm not using any exception handling techniques like try catch block or anything else, right? So it's an unhandled file, or you can say unhandled exceptional file, right? And here itself, for example, I got the exception, right? So then how we handle that? Because out of, for example, out of 10, 9 file handled by the, you can say, try catch block or any other exceptional handler technique. So in that case, if any exception occurred at that specific files, then it will handle by that exception handling mechanism. But unfortunately this file missed to handle that exceptions, or put that exception handling mechanism inside this file, right? So here if I found any exception, then how that exception is handled by the global exception, that we need to see. Okay, So now this will failed, right? And this will failed, right? And if you see now my bot will because of this exception my bot will failed here because I have not put any exception handling mechanism here, right? As I said, this is when this exception handling will occurs only unhandled case. For example, I have now, for example, in sequence 2 I have used try catch block. Okay, inside this main.xml as well I have see I have used try catch block. Right here also I'll just put try catch block, just consider, but I missed this file, right? Sequence 1 I have missed, so here I'll got the exception. So in this case how this exception handling will work, that we will see, right? So I'll just, what I'll do, I'll delete this file for more clarification, right? I'll delete this, I delete this as well. Again I don't require this file as well, or what I'll do, I'll copy this and inside this main XAML I'll use the same code here and okay, and I'll delete this sequence 1 as well. Okay, now obviously I'll get exception here. Okay, now to handle this exception which occurred in this file, right? So globally how this handled, so here inside in our project, if you see inside new we have one file called as the global handler, or we can call as a global exceptional handler, right? What we need to do, we need to simply click on this file global handler, right? If you see here initially if I'll open this, two more thing, initially this is my you can say project where we don't have anything like any file which is like global exception handler, right? Even if I'll open this, right, and if I'll open this project.json file as well, so here as well we don't have anything related to global exception handler, right? If you see here we don't have anything related to the global exception handler because global exception handler is itself as a file, XAML file, right? So simply what I'll do here, I'll simply use, I'll just implement this, I'll click on this new and I'll simply adding this global exceptional, or you can say global handler file to this project or to this you can say program, right? So once I add this file inside this project, you will see global handler.xml file will be added here. Simple. What we need to do, we need to just simple add global handler file inside the project. Simple, that's it, nothing that. And again if I'll open it, and again if I'll open this project.json file, you will see exception handler. If you see here earlier it was not there, so now exception handler workflow, it's like global handler XML. In short, I have added global exception handler file inside the project, or you can say inside my project, right? Now how this global handler handle the exception, or how this global handler works if I'll got any exception, that we will see, right? Now here to understand more or to understand deeply, I'll simply put one message box here, right? What I'll do, I'll simply put one message box here. Okay, inside this I'll just simply put one message box, and here I'll simply use this condition, right? Later we'll see why I have put this message box here, right? Simple. Okay, now I have just put this error info.retry count inside message box just to understand how this global handler workflow will execute, right? Now simple, what I'll do, I'll put, for example, here inside this project, again I'll just here, right here I'll put some activities before and after this activity. So for example, inside before this activity I'll simply put one write line, so line 1, and here I'll just used one more, you can say activity, and you can say line 2. Now I will debug it. Okay, will not run the bot, will simply debug the file. Okay, so here I'll use step into. Okay, again step into. Now it will executed successfully as a line 1. Now here we bot will failing, right? So I'll just use step into. Okay, why this bot is failing here? Because this click activity is not able to find the specific selector which is available for this edit.text click activity. That's what my bot is failing here. Okay, let's see now. Here my bot is failing. Now how this global handler will handle this exception, right? Now if you see, this bot is failing here. Now if I'll again click on this step into, now if you see, now this global handler.xaml or this workflow will come into the picture. Okay, that means now this will handle the exceptions in short, right? Now again if I'll click on this step into, again if I'll click on this step into, so you will see here error info dot exception, whichever exception I'll got inside this activity, the same exception here, with help of this log error activity, this error is logged here. So this is as we know how we handle the exception. The first, there are two part of the exception handling. First, right, the first part here is we need to log the exception, and later we need to resolve that exception. So first part is very important, right? So that's why this log error message or this log activity is also is very important, right? So to logging that exception, here this log error is used, or this log message activity is used. So with help of that activity, the same message it is logged here, right? Now if I'll click again on this step into, so you will see here what is this error info dot retry count. So what do you mean by this error info dot retry count? That we will see. So we'll just simply click on this OK. Now if you this is the main condition which we need to understand, right? If you see here, choose next behavior, choose the action to be taken after the global exception handler steps in, continue, the exception is rethrown, ignore, that we will see one by one. So before that, if you see error info dot retry count, and what was the output of that retry count? 0. So 0 is less than 3. Yes, it's a correct condition, or you can say it will give me a true value. So if I'll click again into, that means I'll go, my execution will go inside this then activity. So if you see, result is equal to error action dot retry. And what do you mean by this retry? If you see, the definition of the retry here is the activity which throw the exception is retry. So in short, so retry means again the same activity executes again, retry. So retry the same activity. It's simple as it is. If any URL is not loading properly, okay, so we will put the retry scope mechanism over there, right? So and we are providing some value like 3 times at least we can give the retry over there. So same way here also, if that at first attempt, if that activity is not going to execute successfully, so at least we can provide some retry over there as well. Okay, so here if I'll again click on this step into, so again my execution go here as well, here itself, to retry the second time, right? So again here I'll use step into. Okay, now just earlier the count was 0, right? Now 0 plus 1 retry, so it will give me the count is equal to 1. Okay, so retry count dot now to string is equal to 1. Okay, so let's see what output we will get. Right, now again if I'll click on this step into, Now my control again go inside the global handler, right? And again if I'll click on this step into, now same exception will cached here, or you can say logged here. And again if I'll click on this step into, now again the error info dot retry count, right? Error info dot retry count increased by 1. Earlier it was 0, right? So it will give me error now is equal to 1, right? So again it will check the condition like 1 is less than 3, yes. So again it will go inside that. Again we will click on this step into, and again here my bot is executing the same activity. So that means we are providing the retry for execution of this activity as a 3. Okay, so it's up to me, or it's up to this developer which count we need to provide there. If we want to provide retry count as a 2, so that also we can change that condition as well, right? We can use less than, instead of less than 3 we can put less than 2 over there, right? If you want to provide retry count is equal to less than 2, right? Where that means now if I'll execute this, right? Again if I'll execute this, now it's 2. Again 2 is less than 3, yes, that's correct. So again it will retry, right? Again it will retry, and now at the end it will give me error, or it will give me the count as equal to 3. So 3 less than 3, then it will fail that condition. Okay, now same exception is locked here as well, because we are executing the same activity, because its condition is like retry, right? Action error action is equal to dot retry. See, now again if I'll click on this step into, now it will give me count is equal to 3. So is 3 less than 3? Now my bot will go inside this else condition, and inside this else condition what statement is written here? So error action dot abort. Now what is the definition of the abort? Abort means the execution stops after running the current handler. What do you mean by that? Now if I'll click on this step into, now this action, or this particular statement will get executed. Now if again click on this step into, now my bot is aborted. Abort means stopped, right? As I said here, if you see error action dot abort means stop. The execution stopped after running the current handler. That means after this handler will gets executed, my bot will stop. Okay, so that is the definition of the abort. So retry means it will retry the same activity, and abort means it will stop the bot, right? Now again we have two more condition. One is continue and one is the ignore, right? Now first we will see, for example I'll just put, for example, ignore, right? I'll simply use here ignore, right? Ignore. And here what I'll do, instead of this 3, no, simple I'll put 1. 1 means only 0, and the second attempt will go inside the else condition. Let's see, and again we will execute the same code. Okay, here what I have used ignore, right? What condition I have used, or what statement I have written here? Error action dot ignore, right? Now instead of debugging, now I'll just run this bot. Okay, now my bot is running, and again here my bot is failing. Okay, because of this is the exceptional activity. Okay, and here what condition I have written? Retry, and in the else I have used ignore. So now here we can manipulate, or we can change this condition as per my logic, right? Now okay, now it will give me 0. As I said, initially it was 0, right? I can simply use simple condition result. If error action it's here itself, I can use if any exception is occurred. So if I want to retry that, I'll use retry. If I want to use ignore, right? Ignore means Ignore means if I'll got any exception here, and if I want to ignore that one, so I can ignore this activity and my bot will consider this, you can say, further activities. Okay, now here if you see, now I'll use, see, now I'll got 1 means, now if you see 1 means is 1 is less than 1. Now my execution like error action dot ignore, that means second time now this activity gets ignored and line 2 will gets executes, right? See here, if you see line 2, right? So ignore means once this condition will get satisfied, ignore means you will ignore this activity, you will ignore this activity after sometimes you will ignore this activity, right? So again, retry means we can retry the same activity, abort means we can stop that, ignore means you can ignore it. Now you can manipulate this, you can say this condition as per your requirement. Now continue means it's very you can say dangerous one. If I'll use continue here, okay, that means my bot will never go ahead, right? Continue means it will again continue with the same activity, it will again continue with the same activity, right? Now here I'll just use 0, right? That means it will directly go inside this continue. Okay, now if I'll run it, always remember, whenever we run the bot we need to run this bot from main. Okay, now I have used less than 0, that means at first count only, I'll go in the else block. Okay, now it's failed, right? And if I'll click on the continue, now it's 0, so it will again execute the same block, right? Continue again 0, if you see again 0, and again it will abort and again it will start, right? So continue means you will continuously execute the same block. Okay, so this is all about, you can say, exception handling. Simple, this is when this exception handling will used if any unhandled exception is occurred, that time this global handler .xml file will work. Now here you can manipulate this activity as per your choice. If you want to retry this at least 3 times, you can just ignore this. If you want to remove this, you can remove this as well. And if you want to instead of retry, if you want to ignore that activity after a certain count, you can use that as well. So here this 4 option is important. Continue means the exception is rethrown, same exception is rethrown. Ignore means the exception is ignored and the execution continues from the next activity. Retry means the activity which throw the exception is retry, again it will retry the same activity. Abort means the execution stops after running the current handler, right? The exception is rethrown, that means again the same exception is rethrown, right? Here we have seen, right, here at very first step, if I'll execute this, right, if I'll step into this, right? Now step into now it will failed, right? My bot is failing because of this activity. Okay, now if I'll click on this step into again, right, now it's give me count is equal to 0. Okay, and here now 0 less than 0, so obviously my control go to the else block. Okay, and here again my control is, you can say, executing the same activity, right? Again it will go 0, again it will, now it's 0, again 0, right? So that means again it will rethrow the same activity. Understood? So that's why this 4 option is important, right? So this is all about, you can say, global handler.